What up? Welcome to Existential Sunday, the very first one of 2021. Welcome to all of you who are watching this on the replay, which is most of you. And those of you who are watching live, hello to all of you on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you and I have not become acquainted, my name is Corey. Thank you for being here. I am a husband, I'm a father, I am a speaker, a writer, and I host a podcast called Existential. And then we decided to do a weekly broadcast, live broadcast called Existential Sunday, both of which are about justice, faith, and culture from the vantage point of the deconstructing, not the deconstructed, because folks, we're still on a journey, and decolonizing of our worldview, our faith. Many of us who are part of Existential Sunday or watch Existential Sunday or are part of our ever-growing family of Existential Sunday folks and contenders for a better world, many of us have some sort of faith tradition. Many of us come from like evangelical fundamentalist Christianity. Some of us have had no faith at all. But either way, faith or no faith, everyone's welcome in this space to lean into what we're talking about. And today, we're going to talk about what happened. Again, talked about it earlier this week. Had some time to sit here and gather my thoughts. Well, I haven't been sitting here in this spot the whole time, but you know what I'm saying. I have a lot that I want to get into and share, and so bear with me as my brain once I start going and my brain starts like revving up. You're gonna have to like hold on because I don't even know where I'm going. All right. I know what I want to say, but I don't know what that's going to lead to me wanting to say and then want to say something else. All right, so just bear with me. And let me just say this up top too. I'm going to share some things that I've been learning from Isabel Wilkerson. Corey, say the woman's name. Isabel Wilkerson and her book, Cast: The Origins of Our Discontent. So I'm going to share a lot of the framework for what I'm going to share today is from her book, which I'm really just scratching the surface of. And if you've not had an opportunity to buy the book, download the book, however you read books, this one is a must read. It is incredible. Thank you to Andre Henry for the recommendation. Secondly, I'm going to speak to you today from the theory and with the assumption that we're all okay with the theory and the idea that race in the United States is a construct. I'm going to echo what Ta-Nehisi Coates said in his book, Between the World and Me, that racism is the father of race, not the other way around. I want to let that sit with you if you've never heard that before, so you can like process it. I'm going to say it one more time. Racism is the father of race, not the other way around. We do not have racism because we have race. We have race because of racism, which is, kind of a strange thing to think about and get your head around, and some of which Isabel talks about in her book, that there is a thing behind the thing that drives racism, which ultimately drove the early settlers of the United States to grant more privilege to Irish and European indentured servants, and created this drop rule, this 3/5 of a human, this like, if your skin was darker and you came from Africa, that you did not have the same privilege as those who were white. Somehow European and Irish became white, African became black. And those categories were created so that privilege could be distributed to one group and not to another. So that one group of people at the very bottom of the caste system, and I want to quote something that Isabel Wilkerson says in her book, that those at the bottom of the caste system, right, we receive the full power of that caste system's dehumanization. That this was established years and years and years and years and years ago, and woven into our history, our way of being and thinking, is the idea that there is a class of people, a group of people who, by virtue of their descendants, by virtue of their bloodline, by virtue of them being the descendants of people who were granted almost with a magic wand special privilege in the United States. And then scientists, preachers, theologians, politicians all cooperated with this idea, all began to find ways to prove, whether it be through scripture, that white folks were supreme, whether it be through eugenics and science, that the white people's brains were bigger and black people had smaller brains, and that our bodies, because we're so athletic, we didn't feel pain. We could endure more work and more harsh labor. So all of these things, right? The scientists and politicians and religious folks all conspiring to keep the construct going and ultimately to make it real. So by the time people in this generation, by the time most of you watching this born after sometime after the 1900s, I'm assuming, my math ain't great, but I'm assuming nobody's watching this who was born in 18 something. If you are, my God, please leave a message in the comments so I can meet you. By the time we woke up in this United States, so much had already been done. So much momentum had already moved forward. So many ideas were already assumed true. You didn't even have to talk about it anymore. You didn't even have to tell the police when they roll up on a group of black kids that they were more dangerous than white kids are. You didn't have to tell Hollywood to cast predominantly white heroes. You didn't have to do it. You didn't have to tell white folks in the United States that this was the greatest country on earth because it just was something we were born into. It's like when fish are in water, they're just in the water. It doesn't make sense to a fish for you to tell it that it's wet. It's in water. And so I told you, some of you weren't ready to know why white folks keep blaming Antifa. You are ready to know, because most of you already do know. It's a really simple thing. It's very simple. White folks, again, I'm operating under the assumption everybody understands the caste and understands the construct of whiteness and understands that when I say white, I'm not attacking you who were born into this system where people said, hey, you're white. White folks, in order to remain supreme, need a villain. You need lesser than people. You need someone at the bottom of the cast to be the antagonist to your protagonist. You have to have that group of people to demonize. Otherwise, who are you more supreme than? Who are you more excellent than? Who are you better than? You have to have that. And Donald Trump understood that. Now, for all of this, he's an idiot, he's dumb, he's yada, yada, all of the memes and gifs and everything else that had come out over the last 4 years about him and watching him speak and saying he's a buffoon and everything else. He's an idiot, yada, yada, yada. All of those things let him off the hook for being a sinister manipulator of white supremacy. You think it's by accident that when the shooting starts, the looting starts? You don't think that like someone at that level of power like doesn't know that that's rooted in white supremacy? You don't think that someone who has risen to the place of power that he rose to doesn't know how to blow a dog whistle? Doesn't know how to convince your Aunt Karen, your cousin Kyle, that people are after their God-given position in the world? He knew how to do that. Politicians have always known how to do that. Many before him knew how to do that, knew how to continue to reinforce this idea, reinforce this position that white folks have and maintain, and to convince them that someone's out to take it from them, to convince them that affirmative action is an attack on them. Again, anything that poses itself as equal to someone who believes they're supposed to be supreme is an affront. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We talked about Caesar. For those of you who have either historical understanding or some sort of religious, I would say Christian background, Caesar viewed every person who thought, or every group of people who dared try to be equal, try to share ideas like the Imago Dei, that everybody's made in the image of God, that under God, everyone's the same, made of the same stuff. To believe that is a threat to the idea that somebody is supreme. And what you watched when you watched those people storming that Capitol building was people who believe they are supreme being tired of told over and over and over again that they're not, that they're equal with Black and brown people, that they're equal with women, that they're equal with people from the LGBTQ plus community, that they're equal with Muslims. They want to be better than Muslims. They want to believe that the greatest threat and evil in the world is from over there in the Middle East, terrorists who are plotting to destroy our country. That's what they want to believe. They don't want to believe that it's what the greatest threat to democracy, the greatest threat to a egalitarian, free society where people flourish in peace with justice and equality. The greatest threat to that is not from overseas. It's right here, the idea that white folks are better. You cannot have freedom and justice and white supremacy at the same time. They just lost the term I want to say. They're mutually exclusive. You can't have them together. And even in the denunciations that we've seen, and I just learned this yesterday, but it didn't sit well with me when I first heard it. I heard from a couple different people this idea that we're not a banana republic. Then I found out that that's rooted in racism. I didn't know why I didn't like it. I didn't know why it didn't sit well with me. Couldn't name it until I saw someone post or share something about how Banana Republic has its roots in racism and has its roots in the colonization of other countries and the us in the United States crushing other countries and then looking at those other countries that we've crushed and being like, you guys suck and I'm glad we're not like you. When do I have heard that before? I've heard that before because of Black and brown communities where there's this Black on Black crime idea where white supremacy and whiteness has forced Black and brown folks to live in substandard ways, which I forget who it was that says it, so I'm sorry for not quoting them properly, that poverty is the father of crime. That if you put people in desperate situations, regardless of who they are, don't be fooled into believing any of that eugenics bullshit that communicates that Black folks are more prone to be violent, more prone to be rapists, more prone to be mindless Neanderthals who just run around killing each other. This idea that if white folks roll through a Black neighborhood, that they should lock their doors because they're going to be killed randomly. This is this fundamentally white supremacist idea that we can take what we want, that we can drain you of your goods and resources, and then we get to criticize you, and then we get to demonize you for being what we set you up to be. So even in our denunciations, this Banana Republic stuff comes out. In other words, what I've heard in our denunciations is this: we're supposed to be better than those people. I feel like I'm looking at a third world country. How did many of those countries become third world? This is how they act over there. This is how they behave. This isn't how we're better than that. Are we? And then I hope this makes sense, because this story has been in my head, and I want to try to make it make sense, and it just popped in my head. I'm gonna go with it. I used to drive a truck for a living, and one Monday morning, it was cold. I drove about an hour to my first stop. It was a Walmart. So drove this big semi. Let me get some water. Sorry. Many of you can't imagine me driving a semi truck, but I did. So anyway, I backed the semi into the dock. I go inside, throw up the bay door, and I would always walk into the back of the trailer to make sure nothing had fell over, because I was kind of a bad driver. Long story that I won't get into. And I'd always make sure that my pallets hadn't fell over, because I didn't want to get in there and have to clean up this mess. And so I would always go in to check, walk in, check. Everything was great. Nothing had fell over. And I turned back around to go back off of my truck into the back room of the grocery store. And the bay door had come down right as I turned around and smacked me right in the face. And like, you know, that first instance, if you've ever run into something in the dark, which I've done many times, like a dumbass, and you're just like, you step back and you're like, who hit me? You're like, you have this, like, you want to blame somebody. Like when I tore my Achilles in 2007, I like turned around, and anyone who's ever torn their Achilles would turn around and say, you ask who kicked me. You have that moment where you're like, somebody did something to me, something happened, right? But you snap out of it. And you don't continue to go looking around for somebody to blame for what happened to you, right? For like coming to the realization that something bad happened. For some reason, well, I already outlined the reason. I shouldn't say for some reason. Because of this ingrained sense of superiority. This ingrained sense that, like, if it's good, if it's peaceful, if it is like on the right side of whatever line you draw in the sand, then yeah, we did that. But if it's on the other side, the moment people start to look at what happened at the Capitol and say, we condemn this, this was evil, this was wrong, white folks went, well, we don't act that way. And had some shock, probably like, wow, like, whoa, did we really just act that petulantly? Has the world really seen us just now with our pants down? What do we do? Oh, let's blame Antifa for it. It was them, because certainly we're not capable of, that's not how we act. Again, listen, even in the denunciations, you hear this like, well, that's not, we're better than that. It had to have been Antifa. And I appreciate the white liberals and the white liberal media who came forward to condemn this stuff and say, hey, if this would have been Black Lives Matter, this is how it would have been. So I am not here trying to demonize anyone and be like, you all suck. I'm simply pointing out, or doing my best, hopefully coming to you with this like sense of why. And not so that we can look at other people and say, you suck. Not so that you can continue to have more ammunition to argue with your Aunt Karen over. Like, I'm really not asking you to share this video with your cousin Kyle. I don't want him in my comments anyway, to be honest. It's not because I hate him. Here's why. My friend Jen Kinney and I had this conversation earlier this week. And it came off of spending some time with family over the holidays, which probably many of us did. That sometimes you look at a person in their face and you're sharing something with them. Like, you're looking at a person and you're saying, hey, you told me in the summer that Antifa was the sort of driving force behind the Black Lives Matter movement. Presumably, I would think that people behind that movement would be Black. just about every image of people I saw storming the Capitol building was white folks. The guy sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk with his feet up from Arkansas, who's been arrested, thank God, he was white. And I've heard tape of him like talking about being proud to be white. And I've heard him espouse white supremacist ideas. But you're now telling me that Antifa's behind that also. And you look at them in their face and you can see that like they continue to make the argument. And no matter what you say, they either find another argument or they sit back and they kind of briefly think about what you're saying and get real quiet and then find some kind of way to end the conversation with the same dumbass argument they were making before. And my friend Jen and I were talking about this, and she named this. And when she named it, I was like, oh man, like, yeah, it's blindness. It's a blindness. It is a lack of ability to see what's right in front of you. And no amount of describing a thing for someone who's actually blind enables them to see it. No amount of arguing about it, no amount of anything allows a person who can't see to see. So might I suggest then, this was where I knew I was going, might I suggest then that rather than continuing to have these arguments, rather than continuing to go back and forth with people who have proven themselves to be not be good faith actors, to be people who don't have space for credible sources, but only conspiracy theories, might I suggest that you walk away from arguments with those people? For those of you who do pray, that you pray for them. Because the only hope for people who are blind is divine power. That's the only thing that can help a person who is blind see. That's why I like that song, Amazing Grace. I once was blind, but now I see. Because of amazing grace, because of something that transcends human ability. Whether that be some scientist who came up with some cure for blindness, or that be an ancient Jewish Palestinian dark-skinned social activist who laid his hands on people's eyes and allowed them to see. It's something beyond what we have the capacity to do on a regular, everyday basis. So when someone's blind, all you can hope for is that there is a divine intervention. And that divine intervention is normally not something that you say, an article that you share, having them come to Existential Sunday. It's why most of the time, if you guys pay attention in the comments on Facebook or even on Instagram for that matter, or I don't even see your comments on YouTube. So if you're leaving a heinous comment on YouTube, good luck getting me to ever read that. I'm just hitting you with an okay or a GIF because you're blind. And I don't want to harm blind people. But I also want to be mindful of the fact that the way they got blind, some people got blind. Oh my God, there's a whole teaching. There's a whole, not teaching, a whole idea story. But I'm not doing it today. I'm not doing it. God, I wish I'd thought of it before. I want to be cautious that I myself don't allow myself to become the way blind folks have become. In the same conversation I had with Jen, she told me about something. I think I'd heard it before, but she reintroduced me to it. That people who are curious develop new neural pathways in their brains by curiosity. Curiosity allows our brains to have basically a bunch of different highways for new information, to add that to what we think, to add that to our worldview. This is what happens with decolonization and deconstruction. When you allow yourself to be open-handed with your beliefs, when you allow yourself to be open-handed with your ideas, and you let yourself sit and listen to people who you trust, people who when they talk aren't demonizing the other side for being stupid, but like when you allow people of good faith, I should say, that's probably the best way to say it. People of good faith, when you allow them to share their story and experience with you, your brain is actually opening up new pathways for understanding and being. And that's what deconstructing and decolonizing is, allowing yourself on that journey of the things I woke up in this world believing and seeing and assuming may all be wrong, or at least incomplete. And there's some other things that can be added to the story. So I let myself be curious about someone else's life, someone else's story. Because if we don't do that, we have less pathways in our brains. And the only space we have is for the same old ideologies that continue to drive white supremacy. You cannot convince the grand poobah of the KKK that he is not better than me. So stop trying. Your effort is better spent in making sure that you don't become the kind of person that you look across the aisle at and see them stumbling around in the dark, blind, blaming everybody else for the stuff they keep bumping into. I ain't even planning to say that. I'm gonna say lie on that. I ain't even planning to say that. I'm gonna say lie and take a sip, and then I'm gonna be done. It's within all of us. Every human being. When you start thinking about and understanding that in the United States, we are not unique in our caste system. We're not unique in there being a group of people who try and take the supreme position. Caste has existed for thousands of years and in many different places around the world. So our particular iteration of caste in the United States is based on white supremacy and anti-Black violence and anti-Blackness, but that's our version of caste. Which tells me then that regardless of who you are watching this, you are capable of believing that there's something special and unique about you that makes you better than other people. Makes you want to blame other folks for your own shortcomings. That's within all of us. So rather than me using my energy to be mad at Karen and Kyle for being stuck in a rut of human depravity, I can use that energy to ensure that I'm being curious, that I'm continuing my process of deconstructing and decolonizing my worldview, that I'm always open to the possibility that I too may be blind to some things. I think those activities may be better than continue to go back and forth with them. Now, I know that some of this is painful. It is painful. It is painful to have to walk away from a relationship, if that's what it comes to, where you have to actually walk away from a relationship with someone because they're blind and they keep punching you because you're trying to help them see. And I know that for some of you, this is mom and dad. And that's a tough one. Like, that's a hard one. What do you do then? I don't know. How do you love mom and dad when they are Karen and Kyle? In some kind of divine way. I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. Hate to leave you there, but that's where I'm gonna leave you, for you to sort of wrestle with that last bit of how you do that. Because we need to do that. But it's on you. That's why I'm so grateful, so thankful to not be pastoring a church. Because if I was pastoring a church right now, I'd have to feel some sort of obligation to make sure you understood exactly how to do the last thing I just said. I don't know that I know how to do it fully. I'm learning. So maybe y'all know how to do it. You can leave in the comments how you do it. All right, folks, that is all. If you like an opportunity, and this is my first time saying this in a while, but if you like the opportunity to support the work that I'm doing, the link to my Patreon community is in the comments. I'm sure someone put it in there as I'm speaking right now. That link is in the comments for you to be a part of this community. I appreciate the support financially, morally, from the folks that are a part of that community. And if you'd like to join that, are able to join that, we welcome you to be a part of that. Grace and peace to all of you.